Today we're going to talk about positive and negative fractions and decimals. These are called rational numbers. So rational numbers are integers. What's an N? Sorry. Are integers such as like 1, 2, 38,000, but also all of those non-integer numbers that we use in math, like fractions and decimals. Just like integers, these fractions and decimals can be positive or negative. And their values are going to be the same way that like positive and negative whole numbers are. So the more negative a number is, the smaller the value it's going to have. So we're first going to start by just practicing graphing fractions and decimals onto a number line, and then we will do some comparing. So we want to graph 3/4. So we're going to start with a positive number, and we need to know what two numbers is 3/4 in between, because it's a fraction. So it's in between two whole numbers. So if you think about if you have 3/4 of a pizza, that's in between having 0 pizzas and 1 whole pizza. So the two numbers we need on our number line are 0 and 1. Since 0 is our smaller value, that would go on the left side. And since 1 is our larger value, it would go on the right side. Okay. The denominator in 3/4 is a 4. So we need to divide this into 4 equal parts. That way we can count like 1/4, 2/4, 3/4. When we make our tick marks, it's always one less than how many parts we need. So if we need 4 parts, it's 3 tick marks. Just like when we were doing like tape diagrams and we needed 8 boxes, we only drew 7 lines, because that last line is going to be the next whole number. So we'd have 1, 2, 3. And just try to space them out as evenly as possible. It does not have to be perfect. Okay. And we're counting by fourths. So this first one would be 1/4, then 2/4, then 3/4. We'd put a nice big dot on 3/4, and that is graphing 3/4. Okay. Same idea with 1 and 1/3. We need to decide what two whole numbers is 1 and 1/3 in between. So if you have 1 and 1/3 of a pizza, that's in between having 1 whole pizza and 2 whole pizzas. Okay. In this, the denominator is a 3. So we're going to need to make 2 tick marks in between those whole numbers. 1 is our smaller whole number, so it goes on the left side. 2 is our larger whole number, so it goes on the right side. In between 1 and 2, we need 2 tick marks so that we can count by thirds. 1/3, 2/3, and then, like I said, 3/3 would be the next whole number. This first tick mark would be 1 and 1/3. The second one would be 1 and 2/3. Then, like I said, the last one would be 1 and 3/3, but that's the whole number. Put a nice big dot on 1 and 1/3. Okay, same idea for negative fractions. Okay, graph -4/5 on a number line. What two integers is -4/5 in between? So when you have a negative fraction, it's in between the same number as the positive one. So what two numbers is 4/5 in between when it's positive is 0 and 1. If you had 4/5 of a pizza, you don't have 0 and you don't have 1. It's in between. Okay, so, but this time it's negative. Sorry. Okay, so it's not in between 0 and 1. It's in between 0 and -1. So this time we have to make sure that the integers are negative. Sorry. So if it was like -1 and 1/3, it would be in between -1 and -2. So it's in between the same numbers. You just have to make them negative. All right, our smaller value out of 0 and -1 is -1. So that goes on our left side, and 0 goes on our right side. That's our larger value. The denominator is a 5. So we're going to need 4 little tick marks to separate it out. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. One thing that's different about when we're negative, remember, when we're counting on a number line, let me just draw a little picture. It goes 0, 1, 2, and then -1, -2. So it counts up going to the left. So we would start at 0. If we would think about like where 1/5 would be, it would be this very first tick mark, 2/5. Remember how they have to like mirror each other. So 1/5 should be the one closest to 0. So this would be -1/5. And then we're counting more negative as we get closer to -1. So negative 2/5. So when we're putting negatives on a number line, it does have to like go to the left. It has to kind of go backwards. 3/5, 4/5. Put a nice big dot on where negative 4/5 is. And that is how we would graph a negative. Okay. I'm going to have us redo a different example for this next one because we didn't do any decimals. So like, let's take this out and let's graph 2.3 and negative 1.3. Okay. That way we can practice a decimal. So we need to go and think about two numbers is 2.3 in between. Well, 2.3 is in between 2 and 3. So we need our biggest number to be 3, smallest number to be 2. But we're putting it on the same number line as negative 1.3. So we need to decide what numbers that's in between. Well, positive 1.3 is in between 1 and 2. So negative 1.3 is in between negative 1 and negative 2. Out of these four numbers, I need to find my smallest value and my largest value. My smallest value is negative 2, so that's going to go on the left. My largest value is 3, that's going to go on the right. In between there, I'm going to fill in those numbers. So I'm going to count up negative 1, 0, 1, 2. So fill in all your whole numbers from there. Okay. Now at this point, you have to pay attention to the directions. The directions just say to graph where 2.3 and negative 1.3 is. So I'm okay with you like estimating about where that would be. Okay. You don't have to go through and split every single section up. All right. So like for 2.3, remembering that decimals are out of 10, this is equal to 2 3/10. So we'd have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. But I just need an estimate about where 2.3 would be. It shouldn't be quite halfway. It should be a little bit less than halfway. And then we just put that number and a nice big old dot there. Okay. When I do that and it's kind of scrunched on lines, I like to write my numbers on the top. That way they stand out a little bit more. You don't have to do that. That's just my preference. And then negative 1.3 is in between negative 1 and negative 2. So I'm looking at this section here, remembering that for negatives, it counts to the left. So it'd be like negative 1.1, 2, 3 would be right about here. Negative 1.3. And then it would keep going 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then it would start back over at negative 2. Okay, so that's how you would graph two different numbers on a number line. All right, let's get into comparing and then we'll be done for today. So the more negative a number is, the less value it has, just like with negative integers. Negative 87 is a lot smaller than negative 5. Okay, same thing with fractions. Negative 7/8 is a lot smaller than negative 1/8 because this number is more negative. I have had students in the past who think about like which number is bigger when it's positive because it's the opposite when it's negative. 7/8 is larger when it's positive than 1/8. So that means when it's negative, it's actually smaller because it's more negative. Okay, so in between each of these fractions, we are going to be putting a symbol greater than, less than, or equal to. If you'd like to pause the video and try this part on your own, you may. Or you can follow along with me. Negative 4/7, negative 1/7. Which one of those numbers is more negative? It would be negative 4/7, so that is going to be smaller. Remembering that our sign always opens up to our larger value. Negative 1 6/10, negative 1 3/10. Well, they both have a negative 1, so I'm just comparing my two fractions. 6/10 is larger, meaning that that's going to be more negative, meaning that negative 1 3/10 is less negative and therefore a larger value. All right. Here, the first thing we'd have to do is make common denominators. We can easily make 3 into a 6 by doing times 2. This is negative 1 4/6. Negative 1 5/6 stays the same. Which one of those numbers is more negative, is larger? That would be, well, larger, it's a positive number, would be negative 1 5/6. So when it's negative, negative 1 4/6 is actually larger. It's less negative. Same thing here. First step would be to make common denominators. Negative 2/9 stays the same. Negative 3/9 is here. Which one of those numbers is more negative? Is negative 3/9, so that is a smaller value. You can also think about it in which one is less negative as well, because then that's the larger value. It's up to you. Ordering these numbers from least to greatest. Again, you can pause the video and try this part on your own if you would like. Least to greatest means most negative to least negative, or like greatest value. So my most negative number, or my smallest value, is negative 2.7. After that would be negative 2.5. After that would be my last negative number, which is negative 1. After that would be 0. Now this part is tricky because I've got two, like one with either a fraction or a decimal. So we have to think about, like, if you have $1.50, $1.50, how much money is that? That's $1.50. So the decimal for 1.5 is 1.5. 1.5 is larger than 1.3. So 1.3 would come next. When we put it in our list, we do not put 1.5 because that was not given to us in our list, just like with the absolute value. We would put 1 and 1/2. All right, and that's how we would list numbers least to greatest.